Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Welcome, my friends, to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Okay, before we get into today's topic, I have to get you caught up with what's going on. First thing is that I will be releasing a very, very special Valentine's Day episode of The Fully Engaged Life on Friday, which is Valentine's Day. So make sure you tune into that. I'm going to have a very special guest joining me for this episode, and it is incredible. And I won't be revealing who the special guest is until the episode actually airs. So make sure you tune in and spend your Valentine's Day with us. You won't regret it. We'll be talking about love, romance, positivity, vibration, music, and much more. The second thing I wanted to let you in on is that during the Valentine's Day episode, all the way at the end, there's going to be instructions on how you can get a free autographed copy of my book, Expansion Mastery, or a free edition of my ebook. You'll have to tune in to that episode. I'm not going to put the details of that anywhere else. So you will have to tune in, get the details, and then act very quickly because it's a very limited offer. So that is my Valentine's Day gift to you. One, the show with a very special guest that's going to blow you away. And two, a special offer where you can get either a free signed copy of my book or a free ebook. Both of these books allow you to get closer to living a fully engaged life. And when you're living fully engaged, you are able to appreciate and enjoy holidays such as Valentine's Day to an all-new, fully engaged level. Okay, so let's get into today's episode. What I would like to do is sort of a prequel to Valentine's Day, and I want to cover a couple topics that arose recently from an article that my wife had read. This came through from someone's relationship blog or something like that, so I'm not aware of who wrote it. We couldn't find it again. So what I would like to do is to examine a few points that were brought up in this article. And I would like to offer you some insight as to what was correct and what was incorrect, as a way to help you better understand the true nature of harmonious and conscious relationships. So the usual thing that's going around is that you shouldn't want someone with the same tastes and interests as yourself. It's said that it's a yawn, right? It's boring to be with someone that is similar to yourself. After all, why would you want to be with somebody that likes the same things you do, has the same life goals you do, has the same interests you do, right? Well, I would like to offer you the reasons why you would, and also the reasons why you wouldn't. Why do you want to be with someone like yourself? Isn't that boring? Only to those who are dominated by the ego-driven mind. Because for those that are purposeful and mindful and authentic in their life, they know that opposites do not attract. They know that like attracts like, And that is where you have your harmonious relationship. It's harmonious when you have someone who has the same interests that you have, so you can share those interests together. You have someone that has the same spiritual foundation that you have, so you can embark on that spiritual journey hand in hand and grow together instead of growing apart. It's easy to understand that when you have someone with the same life goals that you have, the same interests, the same likes, they like the same food, they like the same design of a home, they like the same types of activities, that you get to share in these things together instead of living two separate lives. And it is easy to see that when you can share something that you delight in with someone else who also delights in it, that it increases the delight for each of you. See, it's about sharing these things together. Because otherwise, everything is about sacrifice and compromise. And these are not the qualities of a harmonious relationship. I have experienced both types of relationships in my life. Maybe that's what it means to be a Gemini. I don't know. But I've experienced both. So let me give you an example of what I mean. In one relationship I had, we would try to decide on a meal, what we were going to have for lunch that day, what we were going to have for dinner. And I wanted something that was made at home, something simple, something fairly nutritious. She wanted just the opposite. It was always the desire to go out and eat fast foods. This led to a lot of discontent. So each of us knew what we wanted, and those things were very different. So then we either had to go to two different places, or we would get in arguments over what we were going to eat. And sometimes those arguments would become so heated that we wouldn't speak for the rest of the day. On the other hand, the relationship I have now with my wonderful wife, we enjoy the same types of foods. So it's never been a problem to find somewhere to eat. If I make a couple suggestions and she makes a couple suggestions, we're able to then come together on that and go, you know what, that's the one, and go share this food and enjoy it together. Never, ever a single argument about anything like that. And neither of us ever feel that we're compromising, because we're not. Because we both enjoy the same types of foods. So while this is a very simple example, I think it illustrates the point quite clearly. When you're with someone who has the same taste as you, the same interests as you, in this case, the same palate as you enjoy the same types of foods, it's so fun and enjoyable to decide on what you're going to eat, whether you're going to make something at home or whether you're going to eat something out. Now, we make the vast majority of our meals at home. We only eat out like Friday night, sometimes Saturday for lunch. Those are the only times we eat out. Otherwise, we're preparing food at home. And that is what we both enjoy doing, because we can make healthy, nutritious meals for ourselves, and we'd rather cook our own meals. And then when we do go out, we can enjoy something that we're not capable of making, and enjoy something that is made by, a skilled chef, things like that. And we get to enjoy the same things. A lot of times we get two different dishes, because we're looking at a menu and we're going, I don't know, I want this and I want that. And the other person's going, I know, I was looking at those too. So we get both of them and we share it. And it works out great. That's exciting. How is that boring? That's not boring at all. But most people find it boring. Why? Because they love the drama. They love the fight. They love the argument. They love the battle back and forth to see who gets their way, see who dominates over the other person. This is going on in relationships constantly. And the vast majority of the time, people are unaware that this is not healthy, that this is not a harmonious relationship. They think it's normal. And while it may be normal, it is not the way it is supposed to be. See, this is what the ego-dominated mind seeks in a relationship. They want the friction. They want the drama. They want to be able to have fights and arguments. They crave it. They're addicted to it. See, when you can fight and argue with someone to get your way over theirs, this sense of dominance is pure ego. And it's the ego's way of reinforcing, clinging to its identity as an individual, as opposed to our ability to come together fully with another. Do you get the picture? See what I'm getting at here? When we don't have the ego and we are in a harmonious relationship, you kind of merge in with the other person. You lose yourself in them and they in you. And when the ego is in charge of the mind and we cling to our identity, this is impossible. We resist such a thing. But that is beautiful. That's when two people come together. That's what it's truly about, when both of your hearts can come together and be one, to beat as one. That doesn't happen when you're fighting and arguing over the simplest of daily events. So for anyone I've talked to that considers being with someone similar to themselves as boring, as a big yawn, I've also observed their behavior at how much they cling to their self-created identity and how they crave the drama of the resistance and the arguments and the dominance and all of these other factors that are not signs of a healthy, conscious relationship. When someone has engaged in the practices to dissolve their ego, you can tell in their relationship because the relationship is harmonious. And it isn't that one person is just giving in and giving the other person their way all the time. And it isn't that they're making sacrifices and compromises. It's that when you have no ego and you attract someone to you that is like you, there is no drama. You live a drama-free life with a drama-free relationship. You see, when people are of ego, they find having a partner that is similar to themselves as boring. Whereas someone who is overcoming their ego finds it exciting. What I find boring is having to have arguments over the same thing day in and day out. What I find boring is going into any situation knowing that you're going to have to compromise, sacrifice, that you can't be authentic at all, to know that there's going to be friction and resistance in everything you do all the time. To me, that is redundant, boring, negative, low vibration. And it is not the way to live. It is not the way to have a harmonious, conscious relationship. And I'd like to address one other thing around this topic, because today it's very common to say, well, that's your opinion, and to each their own. Each person has what they like, and that's okay. And I'm here to tell you that is not true. That is not true. When we are living in ego, when our mind is dominated by the ego and the ego dominates our relationship in every moment of our waking life, we are not living fully engaged. Not by any means. You're living just the opposite of that. And that is not a healthy life. It is not a healthy mind. And it is not a healthy relationship. It is not about our opinion. What I'm giving you here is not my opinion. What I'm giving you here is my experience from life and from spiritual practices and how those things coincided. When we live in a harmonious, mindful, conscious relationship without ego, with a partner who is similar to ourselves, has similar likes and tastes and interests and everything else, it is exciting and it is healthy and it is a wonderful way to live a high vibrational life. On the other hand, when we are still consumed with ego and the person we're with is still consumed by their ego, there's nothing but resistance, negativity, and compromise and sacrifice. And this is a very, very low vibrational life. So it isn't a matter of opinion. Opinion doesn't mean anything here. This is truth. And it is fact based upon personal experience and decades of personal study and practice on this path. Think about it. The amount of people who have engaged in practices to dissolve the ego are very few, while people clinging to their self-created identities is quite plentiful. That is the norm. Doesn't make it right, but it is the norm. This would indicate that the majority of people in relationships would find someone similar to themselves boring. Don't you think this coincides with the incredibly high divorce rate that we have in this country? Another point brought up in this article is that in a perfect world, your romantic partner would be your bestie, right? Your best friend, your travel buddy, your confidant, your lover, all rolled into a very compatible human being. But this is laughed at and considered absolutely boring. And as usual, with anyone giving relationship advice that is still dominated by the egoic mind, they go into how you want your partner to only be your partner, and you want a different person to be your best friend, and you want a different person to fulfill each of the different roles in your life. And it's this kind of thinking that has led us to the type of romantic relationship where people lead separate lives and come together only once in a while when it's convenient or when it's necessary. This is not a marriage. This is not a romantic relationship. This is actually serving to cause honest romantic relationships to become extinct. It's destroying them. And we see the increase in this because we're seeing an increase in the inflation of the human ego as it continues to rise towards unsustainable levels. See, in a healthy, harmonious, conscious relationship, your spouse is absolutely your best friend. My wife is my best friend. I'd have it no other way. She said the same of me. She is certainly my best friend. She's my romantic partner, my best travel buddy. Oh my gosh, I enjoy traveling with her so much. She is the single most person that I love, trust, and confide in more than anybody else on the planet. And my wife has stated she feels the same. So does this put a lot of pressure on either of us to fulfill all those roles? No, not at all. That's what this is about. That's what a marriage partnership, a romantic relationship is supposed to be. But see, when we're unable to give ourselves this way to another person because our ego is so inflated, we run into this type of conflict. I would caution you to realize that anyone out there writing a book or writing articles or stressing relationship advice that says compromise is key, you need to understand a couple things. Their advice is not wrong for those who are still dominated by the egoic mind. And it addresses those people. However, is it going to allow them to have a harmonious relationship? No, it's just reinforcing the same idea of compromise and sacrifice. And when that's the case, no one is able to live in a sense of authenticity, and they're never truly happy. There is no harmony. You could also understand that anyone giving this type of advice is still dominated by the egoic mind themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to see the sense in what it is that they're saying. This is why what we are stressing is how to develop a conscious relationship. By that, what I mean is that first and foremost, you get yourself right. You undergo certain practices. You raise your vibration. You open your heart. You live in appreciation. You dissolve the ego. And then you find someone, you will attract them, who's doing basically the same thing. And when you guys have that, when that is your base, and you have a similar, if not the exact same, spiritual path, you have the foundation for a very happy, healthy, harmonious, romantic relationship. That is something far beyond the comprehension of those who still dwell in the ego. Let's look at one more point here. Often, it's stated in this type of advice that you need someone who is the opposite of you. You need someone to help ground you or lift you up. You need someone to help challenge you and help you overcome your deficits. See, this is a negative attribute to a partner. This is not their responsibility. And when you're in a romantic relationship, a healthy one, your partner isn't there to constantly aggravate you and challenge you. They can't change you. See, this is based on the assumption, the faulty assumption, that you can change someone else. That is the worst way to enter any relationship. You cannot change another person. You can only change yourself. See? So that's already a recipe for failure. For instance, if you go into a relationship with somebody who's very messy, they don't keep their home very neat, and you like to keep your home nice and neat. So you enter a relationship thinking, well, I'll help them to become more neat and help balance them out. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Trust me, I know from experience. What happens is you have friction and resistance because the other person most of the times is happy with themselves and they have no desire to change. So you see, we can't inspire someone else to change. We can't make them change. Change comes from within. We have to decide to be the way we want to be. And then we have to find someone that we can be with who is compatible. If you have someone who is messy, unkept, and they're happy with that, they don't see why they should change, and their vibration is at a level that matches that, and you like to keep a nice, neat environment, clean environment, organized environment, and your vibration is aligned with that frequency, you two are not in the same realm. Your frequencies don't match up, and because of that, there will be friction. Entering into a romantic relationship with the belief that you can change the other person is the epitome of ego. So even if we look at this from a purely vibrational standpoint, if your frequencies aren't similar, if they don't match up, the less harmonious your relationship is going to be. The closer they are to aligning, the healthier and happier your relationship will be. Because you're on the same wavelength, you're on the same frequency, and you have the knack of just getting the other person. It's easy. And this is why most of the dating and relationship advice going on out there seems to make absolutely no sense to people who are on the spiritual path, who are engaged in becoming mindful and awakened and working to live in appreciation with an open heart and overcome the ego. Think about it this way. If I was someone who engaged in meditation, had a clear spiritual path, and wanted to live a spiritually based life and become mindful and live very happy in a high vibration, and I got involved with someone who didn't give a care about any of that, that thought it was stupid and a senseless waste of time, who enjoyed living a mindless, robotic life, that didn't care about living in appreciation, didn't care about having an open heart, just was perfectly content, allowing themselves to ride the unconscious emotional roller coaster. Do you think for a moment that those two people can be happy together? I can tell you from personal experience, that is definitely not the case. So I encourage you to stay the course. Embark your spiritual path, attract someone with the same spiritual interests, and who vibrates at the same frequency that you do. When that happens, believe me, you will be blown away. You will be knocked off your feet in a way you can't even imagine. And again, I'm speaking from personal experience. My wife certainly had that effect on me. And you know what? Many years later, she continues to have that same effect on me every single day. So it's up to you to decide what kind of romantic relationship you desire. All right, so there's a little pre-Valentine's Day advice and guidance. Make sure you tune in Friday for the special Valentine's Day episode with my guest as we cover topics such as love, romance, positivity, vibration, and music. It's going to be wild. So make sure you enjoy it and make sure you listen at the end for details on how to get a free ebook or a free signed copy of my book, Expansion Mastery. Please make sure and visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. You can get all the merchandise there. Make sure you do all the social media stuff, share and like and leave comments, things like that. I really appreciate the comments you guys are leaving. I appreciate you sharing everything. It's helping so much. And together we can share authentic, truthful information with those who are ready to receive it. As always, my friends, I wish you the very best in your practices, your relationship, and your life. Take care.